If you want to see real change in your life, it starts with the way you think. Every choice, every action, and every result is shaped by your mindset. Right now, you might feel stuck, frustrated, or unsure why progress seems slow. This video will give you practical steps to take control of your mind, break old habits, silence self-doubt, and build lasting confidence. You'll learn how to reprogram your mindset for success, act with purpose instead of reaction, and focus your energy where it truly matters. By the end, you'll have actionable strategies to upgrade your thinking every single day and create real, measurable results in your life. Stick around, follow these steps closely, and apply them consistently. Hit subscribe for more content like this, and start transforming your mindset today. Change starts in your mind, and the results will follow. Number 1. Reprogram your mindset for success. Reprogramming your mindset for success begins with one simple truth. Your thoughts shape everything you experience. Every choice, every reaction, every belief that guides your behavior starts in your mind. If your mind is conditioned by limitation, fear, and doubt, your life will reflect that. But if your thinking is built on growth, possibility, and responsibility, your entire direction changes. Most people spend their lives waiting for external circumstances to improve before they change how they think. They wait for more money, better relationships, or a lucky break. The truth is, those things rarely come until you shift the way you see yourself and the world around you. Change begins within, and your mindset is the foundation of everything that follows. Reprogramming your mind means taking back control of the beliefs that run silently in the background of your life. You might not notice them, but they dictate how you act and what you expect from yourself. If you've ever caught yourself saying, "I'm not good enough," "I can't do this," or "people like me never succeed," you're hearing the voice of conditioning, not truth. Those words are not facts. They're patterns created by repetition. They come from years of absorbing messages from others, parents, teachers, media, society. At some point, you accepted those messages as your identity, but they can be rewritten. To reprogram your mindset, begin by becoming aware of the mental scripts you play on repeat. Pay attention to how you talk to yourself when something goes wrong. Notice the thoughts that arise when you're faced with a challenge or opportunity. Most people's minds immediately look for danger or failure because the brain is wired for survival, not success. Success requires intentional thinking. Survival thinking says, avoid risk. Success thinking says, learn from every step. Awareness is the first act of freedom. Once you notice those automatic thoughts, you gain the power to change them. Every time you catch a limiting thought, challenge it directly. Ask yourself, is this thought helping me grow or holding me back? If it's the latter, replace it with a thought rooted in truth and progress. This doesn't mean repeating empty affirmations. It means building new evidence. If your mind says, "I can't do this," answer with action. Do one small thing that proves you can. Each small success rewires your mind toward possibility. Change happens through repetition, not by force. The more you practice thinking differently, the stronger the new pattern becomes. Reprogramming your mindset also involves redefining what success means. Many people believe success is about money, status, or recognition. But true success begins in the ability to master your inner world. You could have all the external achievements in the world, but if your mind is restless, insecure, or dependent on others' approval, you will never feel successful. Real success is peace of mind, strength under pressure, and clarity in purpose. When you define success as becoming the best version of yourself each day, you free yourself from comparison. You stop measuring your worth against others and start measuring it against your potential. To strengthen your mindset, build daily habits that reinforce mental discipline. Begin each morning with a moment of quiet reflection. Before touching your phone or engaging with the outside world, set your mental direction. Ask yourself what kind of person you want to be today. Visualize yourself acting with focus, calmness, and purpose. The mind responds to clarity. If you don't give it direction, it will default to old habits. Throughout the day, remind yourself that every thought is a choice. You can choose doubt or belief, distraction or discipline, complaint or gratitude. Environment also shapes mindset. Surround yourself with people who think at a higher level. If you spend your time around negativity, gossip, or laziness, it will infect your thinking. Energy is contagious, and your environment either feeds your growth or drains it. Seek out books, podcasts, and conversations that challenge your perspective and push you to expand. Reprogramming your mind means exposing it to better ideas. You cannot think new thoughts if you're always consuming the same information. One of the most powerful shifts in mindset is moving from a victim mentality to an ownership mentality. A victim blames circumstances, luck, or other people. An owner takes responsibility even for things that seem unfair. This doesn't mean blaming yourself for everything. It means accepting that how you respond determines what happens next. You may not control what life gives you, but you always control what you do with it. The more you practice ownership, the stronger your mind becomes. You stop wasting energy on excuses and start investing it in solutions. Fear will always be part of the process. Many people wait for the fear to disappear before taking action, but that moment never comes. The mind grows by doing what it resists. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's the choice to move despite it. Every time you act in the presence of fear, your brain learns that you are capable. Slowly, fear loses its control over you. This is mental reprogramming in motion, taking fear and using it as fuel for progress instead of a barrier. To build a success-oriented mindset, you must also train your focus. Modern life is filled with distractions designed to scatter your attention. The mind cannot grow strong if it's constantly pulled in 10 directions. Set aside time each day for focused work without interruptions. Practice finishing what you start. When your mind learns that you follow through, it begins to trust you. Self-trust is one of the strongest foundations of success. When you trust yourself, you stop seeking validation from others and start relying on your own judgment. Another essential part of reprogramming is gratitude. Gratitude shifts your focus from what's missing to what's possible. It trains your mind to see opportunity instead of lack. Each night, reflect on what went right, what you learned, and what you're grateful for. This isn't about pretending everything is perfect. It's about strengthening your ability to see the good, even in difficulty. People with gratitude-oriented minds are more resilient because they interpret challenges as lessons, not punishments. Remember that your mind is like a garden. If you do not actively plant seeds of growth, weeds of negativity will take over. You must nurture your mindset every single day through intentional thought, reflection, and discipline. Read things that elevate your understanding. Spend time in silence to reconnect with your purpose. Move your body to release stress and sharpen your energy. Every positive action reinforces a new mental program. Reprogramming your mindset is not a one-time event. It's a lifelong practice. You will slip back into old thinking patterns from time to time, but that doesn't mean you've failed. Growth is not about perfection. It's about awareness and adjustment. Each time you recognize an old pattern and choose differently, you win. Over time, the new way of thinking becomes natural, effortless, and automatic. The ultimate goal is to build a mind that works for you, not against you. A mind that focuses on solutions, not problems. A mind that sees obstacles as challenges to overcome, not excuses to quit. A mind that understands progress is made one disciplined day at a time. When your mindset aligns with your purpose, success becomes inevitable, not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because you become stronger, wiser, and more capable of handling it. Everything starts in the mind. Your future, your relationships, your happiness, and your results all reflect what you consistently think and believe. Reprogramming your mindset is the foundation of every form of success, because it determines how you interpret reality. You can't build a new life with old thoughts. The world outside you changes only when the world inside you evolves first. When you take control of your thoughts, you take control of your destiny. That is the real transformation, when your mind stops reacting and starts creating. Every day is a new opportunity to reprogram your thinking. Each morning you wake up, you can choose to stay the same or take one step toward becoming better. Start small, stay consistent, and stay aware. Success doesn't come from force, it comes from discipline, patience, and self-mastery. When you learn to direct your thoughts with clarity and intention, nothing in life stays the same. Your external world begins to mirror the strength and vision you've built within. That is when real change begins, when your thinking transforms first, and everything else follows naturally. Number 2, break old thought habits daily. Breaking old thought habits daily is about freeing yourself from the invisible chains that hold you back. Every day, thousands of thoughts pass through your mind, and most of them are not new. They are recycled ideas, judgments, and patterns that you've been repeating for years. These patterns shape how you interpret the world and how you react to it. If you keep thinking in the same way, you will keep creating the same experiences. To grow, you must interrupt those old loops and teach your mind to think differently. It is not about forcing positive thoughts. It's about learning to identify which thoughts serve you and which ones drain you. Most people underestimate how automatic their thinking is. You wake up and your brain immediately starts replaying the same routines: worry about work, regret from the past, comparison with others, or frustration about what's missing. The mind becomes a mirror of yesterday. To break that pattern, awareness is the first step. You must notice what your mind is doing without judgment. Pay attention to your default reactions. Notice how you speak to yourself when you face difficulty or make mistakes. Awareness shines light on the habits that operate in the dark. You can't change what you don't recognize. Once you see these repetitive thoughts clearly, you must disrupt them. The human brain craves familiarity because it feels safe. Old thought habits survive through repetition, just like a path worn into the ground by constant walking. To break that path, you need to take a different route. Each time a negative or limiting thought arises, pause. Do not accept it as truth. Question it. Ask, is this thought accurate? Is it helpful? Does it move me forward? If the answer is no, replace it with a thought that supports progress, not stagnation. The goal isn't to suppress your thoughts, it's to redirect them. This practice must be done daily because the mind will always drift back toward comfort. One day of awareness won't undo years of conditioning. The process is similar to training a muscle. Consistency builds strength. Every time you challenge an unhelpful thought, you're building mental endurance. Over time, you'll notice that negative thinking loses its grip on you. You begin to catch yourself faster and your recovery becomes quicker. This is mental discipline in action. Breaking thought habits also means becoming selective about what you feed your mind. Your thoughts don't appear in isolation. They're influenced by what you consume. The news you watch, the conversations you engage in, the content you scroll through, all of it shapes how you think. If your environment is filled with fear, gossip, or drama, your mind absorbs it like a sponge. To think differently, you must feed your brain differently. Surround yourself with ideas, people, and information that reflect who you want to become. You can't expect a strong, focused mind if you constantly entertain distractions and negativity. Another powerful way to break old thought habits is through mindful silence. Spend time each day simply observing your mind without reacting. Sit quietly and notice what comes up. The goal is not to stop thinking, but to detach from the stream of automatic thoughts. When you observe them without getting pulled in, you create distance between yourself and your thinking. That distance gives you control. The more you practice this, the less your thoughts control you. You begin to understand that you are not your thoughts. You are the observer behind them. This shift in awareness weakens old habits because they lose their emotional power. Change also requires confronting the comfort of negativity. Many people hold on to their thought patterns because they provide familiarity, even if that familiarity causes pain. Complaining, doubting, or fearing becomes habitual because it's predictable. Growth, on the other hand, demands uncertainty. To break those habits, you must become comfortable with discomfort. When an old pattern surfaces, such as self-doubt or impatience, don't run from it. Acknowledge it and respond differently. If you normally react with frustration, practice calmness. If you usually assume failure, remind yourself that progress takes time. Each new response rewires the brain toward resilience. Practical application strengthens this process. Throughout your day, challenge yourself to interrupt your mental autopilot. When you catch yourself thinking something negative or repetitive, stop and take a breath. Count to 3 before reacting. Ask yourself, what's a better way to look at this? For example, if you think, "This always happens to me," reframe it as, "This is another opportunity to handle things better than before." Such shifts may seem small, but over time they completely alter how you experience life. The goal isn't perfection, it's awareness and correction. Old thought habits often originate from fear of failure, rejection, or uncertainty. To break them, you must face those fears directly. The next time fear-based thinking appears, observe it with honesty. Most fears are exaggerated by imagination. The mind creates worst-case scenarios to keep you from taking risks. But when you take small, intentional actions despite fear, you prove to yourself that those fears are not as powerful as they seem. Each time you move forward, the mind adjusts. What once triggered anxiety becomes manageable. That is how fear-based thinking loses its influence. To make this transformation stick, reflection is essential. At the end of each day, take a few minutes to review your thoughts and reactions. Ask yourself where your thinking served you and where it held you back. Writing it down strengthens awareness and helps you identify patterns. Over time, you'll notice that many negative thoughts repeat in different forms. Recognizing them early prevents them from guiding your actions. This daily reflection acts as a reset for your mind, ensuring that you start each new day with clarity instead of carrying mental baggage from the day before. Breaking thought habits also involves forgiveness, both for yourself and others. Many negative patterns come from unresolved resentment, guilt, or disappointment. When you hold on to those emotions, they replay in your mind through thoughts like, "I should have done better," or "They'll never change." Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, it means freeing your mind from the grip of the past. When you release that weight, you create mental space for new, empowering thoughts. Freedom of mind is not about erasing the past, but about refusing to live inside it. Another practical step is to create mental anchors that remind you to stay aware. You can use triggers such as checking your phone, walking through a door, or sitting at your desk to pause for a moment and check your thinking. Ask yourself, Am I thinking consciously right now, or am I on autopilot? This habit builds mindfulness throughout your day. Over time, you'll find yourself catching unhelpful thoughts before they grow into emotions or actions. That moment of awareness is where change happens. Breaking old thought habits is not an instant transformation. It's a gradual rewiring of how you process reality. Each small act of awareness, each conscious decision to think differently, weakens the old patterns. The process may feel uncomfortable at first because the brain resists change, but discomfort is the signal that growth is taking place. When you persist through that discomfort, you build a new level of mental strength that makes you unshakable. Eventually, your thoughts begin to align with your goals instead of your fears. You stop reacting to life and start directing it. You approach challenges with curiosity instead of resistance. You replace worry with problem solving, comparison with gratitude, and hesitation with action. The mind becomes a tool for growth rather than a trap of repetition. Each day is a chance to choose again, to notice, challenge, and replace what no longer serves you. When you make that choice daily, your entire perspective transforms. You no longer wake up repeating yesterday's mindset. You begin to think with purpose, act with clarity, and live with awareness. This is what it means to break old thought habits, to liberate your mind from unconscious repetition, and build a life guided by deliberate thought. Over time, your new way of thinking becomes natural, steady, and strong. And as your thoughts evolve, everything in your life begins to follow. Number 3. Question every limiting belief honestly. Questioning every limiting belief honestly is the act of freeing your mind from invisible walls that quietly dictate how far you allow yourself to go. These beliefs often form so early and run so deep that you rarely stop to notice them. They exist like background noise, always humming beneath your awareness, shaping your choices, and defining what you think is possible. The truth is, most of these beliefs were never chosen consciously. They were inherited through experience, culture, family, or failure. To live fully, you must bring them to light, examine them, and challenge whether they are still true or useful for who you are becoming. A limiting belief is any thought that restricts your potential or narrows your perspective. It might whisper that you're too old to start again, too inexperienced to succeed, or too damaged to change. It may convince you that life is unfair, that opportunities are scarce, or that you're destined to stay where you are. These beliefs create boundaries inside the mind that feel permanent but are not. They are built on interpretation, not fact. The way to dismantle them is through honest questioning, not denial, not blind positivity, but genuine curiosity and truth-seeking. Honest questioning begins with awareness. Most people live inside their beliefs as if they were facts. They never ask where those beliefs came from or why they hold them. To begin, pay attention to the thoughts that come up when you dream bigger or step outside your comfort zone. Notice the sentences that appear when you imagine change. Things like, "That's too hard," or "I could never do that." These automatic responses are clues. Write them down, bring them out of the shadows of your mind and onto paper where you can see them clearly. Awareness turns vague feelings into something you can work with. Once you've identified a limiting belief, approach it like a detective searching for truth. Ask, is this absolutely true? Who taught me this? When did I first start believing it? Most of the time, you'll realize that what you believe came from someone else's experience, not your own. Maybe a parent told you that success is for lucky people. Maybe a teacher once made you feel incapable. Maybe society convinced you that your background determines your ceiling. These messages entered your mind when you were too young or unaware to challenge them. But now, you have the ability and responsibility to question them directly. When you question a belief, don't rush to replace it with a positive statement. Sit with it, and explore it fully. Ask yourself how it has shaped your life. How many opportunities did you avoid because of it? How many times did you doubt yourself because of it? Be honest, not harsh. The goal isn't to judge yourself, it's to see the truth clearly. Once you acknowledge how a belief has limited you, you strip it of its hidden control. Awareness weakens illusion. To move beyond a belief, you must also gather new evidence. The mind changes not through argument, but through proof. If you believe you're bad at something, give yourself chances to practice and improve. If you believe people can't be trusted, start observing examples of honesty around you. Reality often provides more balance than your beliefs allow. Each time you find evidence that contradicts a limiting thought, you loosen its hold. Over time, the belief begins to collapse under the weight of truth. Another part of questioning limiting beliefs is understanding their purpose. Most of them exist because they once protected you. Maybe you learned not to take risks after experiencing pain or rejection. Maybe you believed you weren't enough because that belief kept you from being disappointed. Recognizing the purpose behind a belief helps you release it without resentment. You can thank it for trying to protect you and still decide that it no longer serves your growth. Self-awareness combined with self-compassion makes transformation sustainable. To question beliefs effectively, you must also be willing to face discomfort. When a belief is challenged, the ego resists. It will try to defend the old narrative because that narrative feels safe, even when it's painful. The mind prefers familiar suffering over unfamiliar freedom, but growth requires the courage to be uncertain. When you question a belief, you might not have an immediate replacement. You enter a space of "I don't know," and that space can feel unsettling. Stay there. It's in that uncertainty that new understanding forms. The absence of old certainty creates room for truth to emerge. Honesty is what makes this process powerful. You must be willing to see your own patterns without denial. Sometimes, limiting beliefs persist because they justify inaction. Believing "I can't change" relieves you from the responsibility of trying. Believing it's too late keeps you comfortable in routine. To question beliefs honestly means confronting your own excuses. It means asking yourself, do I truly believe this, or am I using it to avoid effort, risk, or accountability? That level of honesty can be uncomfortable, but it's also liberating. The moment you admit that a belief is an excuse, it loses its strength. One of the most effective ways to challenge limiting beliefs is through contrast. Look for examples of people who have achieved what you once thought was impossible. Every story of transformation you encounter weakens the illusion of limitation. When you realize that people from similar backgrounds with similar challenges have risen above, your mind begins to understand that the barrier is not circumstance, it's belief. Use those examples as proof that your old stories are outdated. Visualization also plays a role in this process. Spend time imagining yourself acting without the limitation. Picture what your life would look like if that belief didn't exist. How would you think, behave, and make decisions? This isn't daydreaming, it's rewiring. The brain responds to imagined experiences similarly to real ones. When you repeatedly visualize freedom from a limiting belief, your subconscious begins to accept that new possibility. The more familiar the new belief feels, the easier it becomes to live it out. Each time you question and release a belief, your confidence grows. You begin to realize how much of your struggle came not from the world, but from the story you told yourself about it. This realization builds inner strength. You stop being trapped by assumptions and start engaging life directly. You stop saying "I can't" and start asking "how can I?" That simple shift changes your direction entirely. You move from limitation to exploration. Daily practice keeps this transformation alive. Make it a habit to examine your thoughts whenever you feel resistance or doubt. Pause and ask, what belief is driving this reaction? Then question it. This small daily act builds mental flexibility. Over time, your default response to challenge becomes curiosity instead of fear. The mind becomes open, adaptive, and strong. Questioning beliefs also deepens your sense of authenticity. Many of the ideas you carry about who you are were never yours to begin with. They were borrowed identities, roles you played to be accepted or safe. When you strip away false beliefs, you begin to uncover your real self. That self is not limited by fear, judgment, or comparison. It's guided by clarity and integrity. Living from that place gives you peace, because your thoughts and actions finally align with truth rather than conditioning. Transformation happens quietly at first. You start catching old beliefs mid-sentence. You stop doubting yourself as quickly. You respond to challenges with new calmness. These small moments accumulate into something powerful: freedom. A free mind is not one without thoughts. It's one that sees through them. When you can observe a belief, question it, and choose a better one, you reclaim control over your life. The work of questioning limiting beliefs is lifelong. New challenges will always invite new doubts. But once you learn how to question honestly, you never stay trapped for long. You develop the inner strength to recognize false stories before they take root. You learn to trust your own reasoning more than external noise. That is true mental independence, the ability to shape your reality through conscious thought rather than inherited fear. When you live with this awareness, life expands. You begin to see possibilities where you once saw barriers. You act with confidence, not because everything is guaranteed, but because you know you can think your way through anything. The limits you once believed in no longer define you. They become lessons, reminders of how powerful awareness can be. Freedom begins not when the world changes, but when you realize that your beliefs were never walls, only doors waiting to be opened. Number 4. Replace fear with practical action. Fear is one of the most persistent forces in human life. It disguises itself in many forms: hesitation, overthinking, avoidance, or endless planning. It convinces you to wait for the perfect moment, to gather more information, or to feel more ready. But fear never really leaves through waiting. It grows stronger in silence and in action. The only real antidote to fear is movement. When you replace fear with practical action, you transform anxiety into momentum and self-doubt into progress. Every step forward weakens the illusion that fear creates. Fear thrives on uncertainty. It feeds on the mind's habit of imagining what could go wrong. The more you think about the unknown, the more your brain amplifies risk. You begin to build stories of failure, embarrassment, or loss, even when none of those things have actually happened. The mind confuses imagination with reality, but action brings you back to what is real. When you take even a small, deliberate step, you interrupt the loop of endless worrying. You remind yourself that you are capable of responding to life rather than being paralyzed by it. The key to overcoming fear is not to eliminate it, but to act despite it. Courage is built through experience, not through theory. You become fearless, not by talking yourself into confidence, but by proving through action that you can handle whatever happens. The first few steps will always feel uncomfortable, but discomfort is a sign that you are growing. Fear loses power the moment you face it directly. Each time you do what you're afraid of, your brain learns that the danger it predicted never materialized. Over time, your nervous system adjusts, and the same thing that once terrified you becomes routine. Action does not have to be grand to be powerful. Often, Fear makes you think that progress requires massive leaps, but change begins with small, controlled movements. If you fear speaking up, start by sharing a small opinion. If you fear starting a project, begin with the first task, not the whole picture. Breaking fear into manageable pieces makes it easier to act. The brain can handle small steps better than big, undefined risks. What matters is momentum. The simple act of doing something, however minor, that moves you closer to what you fear. Understanding fear requires seeing it for what it really is. A signal, not a stop sign. Fear shows up whenever something matters deeply to you. It points toward growth, not danger. When you shift your relationship with fear, it becomes a teacher instead of an enemy. Ask yourself what your fear is trying to tell you. Often, it reveals where your greatest potential lies. If you fear failure, it means you care about success. If you fear rejection, it means you crave connection. When you interpret fear as guidance rather than opposition, you can use it to identify where action is needed most. To replace fear with action, preparation is essential, but over-preparation is avoidance disguised as productivity. Many people convince themselves they are planning when they are actually procrastinating. The endless search for the perfect plan is just fear trying to delay exposure. The solution is to prepare enough to take the first step and then adjust along the way. Experience provides feedback that no amount of thinking can replace. You can't discover the right path by standing still. Clarity appears when you start moving. It's also helpful to remember that fear shrinks in the presence of clarity. When your goals are vague, your mind fills the gaps with worry. When your direction is specific, fear has less space to grow. Define exactly what you want to do and why it matters. Write it down. When your reason is stronger than your fear, you find the strength to take the first step. Action without clarity leads to chaos, but clarity without action leads to stagnation. You need both, understanding and movement. The mind often exaggerates the size of challenges before they begin. It paints catastrophic pictures of what could go wrong. Yet when you finally take action, you realize most fears were illusions. The conversation you dreaded turns out fine. The project you avoided becomes rewarding. The opportunity you feared failing at teaches you something valuable. Fear dissolves when it meets reality, because reality is rarely as bad as imagination suggests. You don't conquer fear in your head. You conquer it through experience. A powerful practice for breaking fear's hold is to focus on process, not perfection. Fear thrives when you demand flawless results from yourself. The pressure to succeed perfectly keeps you from starting at all. Instead, aim for progress. Accept that mistakes and awkward moments are part of growth. Every person you admire has failed repeatedly. They just didn't stop because of it. Action teaches you more than waiting ever will. Mistakes aren't proof of weakness, they're evidence of learning. When fear appears, the body reacts before the mind does. Your heart races, your stomach tightens, and your thoughts speed up. Recognize these sensations for what they are. Signs that your system is alert, not doomed. Take slow, deep breaths to calm your body before acting. Fear loses intensity when you control your physiology. Then move, even slightly. Make the call, write the email, open the file. Any small action interrupts the paralysis. The fastest way to quiet fear is to do something productive while it's still present. Practical action doesn't just overcome fear, it builds confidence. Confidence isn't something you wait to have before acting, it's something you earn by acting repeatedly. Each small victory adds evidence that you can handle life. The more you act, the more trust you develop in yourself. Over time, your default response shifts from hesitation to initiative. You stop asking "what if I fail" and start asking "what if this works?" That shift in mindset changes everything. Fear often convinces you that you must eliminate it entirely before moving forward. But life doesn't work that way. Every meaningful step comes with uncertainty. The goal is not to silence fear, but to coexist with it while still moving. Accept fear as part of the human experience. It's a sign that you're stretching beyond what's comfortable. People who achieve great things are not fearless. They are simply more practiced at acting in fear's presence. The more often you do this, the quieter fear becomes. It's also important to build routines that encourage consistent action. Fear thrives in unstructured time because it fills the silence with worry. Set daily commitments, even small ones, toward your goals. Action done consistently builds momentum that fear struggles to interrupt. When you develop habits of movement, you stop relying on motivation or emotion to carry you forward. Discipline becomes your ally. A structured day gives fear less room to breathe. Reflecting on progress also reinforces courage. Each evening, acknowledge the actions you took that day, no matter how small. This trains your brain to associate effort with achievement. Over time, you begin to view yourself as someone who takes initiative instead of waiting. That identity shift strengthens resilience. You become someone who acts in alignment with values, not emotions. Surrounding yourself with action-oriented people accelerates this transformation. Fear spreads quickly, but so does courage. When you spend time around people who take consistent action, their mindset influences yours. They normalize progress, not perfection. Their example reminds you that everyone feels fear, but not everyone listens to it. Energy is contagious, and the energy of action breaks through hesitation. The truth is, fear will always exist in some form. It never disappears completely because it serves a purpose to keep you alert, to remind you that something matters. But it doesn't have to be in control. When you learn to act even with fear in your chest, you discover freedom. You no longer wait for permission to start. You stop letting anxiety decide your direction. Replacing fear with practical action transforms how you approach life. You stop living in reaction and start living with intention. You no longer measure yourself by how comfortable you feel, but by how much progress you make. You begin to see fear as an invitation, a signal that growth lies on the other side. Each step forward, no matter how small, chips away at the limits fear created. In the end, fear loses its grip, not because it vanishes, but because your belief in action becomes stronger than your belief in hesitation. The moment you move, the illusion fades. Reality takes its place. That is the quiet power of courage. Not dramatic gestures, but consistent, practical steps taken in the presence of uncertainty. Every act of movement says to fear, "You don't control me," and with each repetition of that truth, life expands, confidence deepens, and what once felt impossible becomes your new normal. Number 5. Visualize outcomes before taking steps. Visualization is one of the most underrated tools for personal transformation. Before any great change takes place in your life, it begins in your mind. What you repeatedly picture becomes familiar, and what feels familiar becomes easier to achieve. When you visualize outcomes before taking steps, you prepare both your conscious and subconscious mind to align with what you want. You are no longer walking blindly into the future, you're shaping it before it happens. Every major accomplishment starts with a clear mental image of success long before it appears in reality. Visualization is not daydreaming. It's not wishful thinking or fantasy. It's mental rehearsal. Athletes, entrepreneurs, Artists and leaders use it because it conditions the brain for success. When you vividly imagine yourself performing an action like giving a confident presentation, closing an important deal, or completing a goal, your brain activates the same neural pathways that it would if you were actually doing it. You're essentially training your mind and body to believe you've already succeeded, making it far easier to follow through when the real moment comes. The problem for many people is that they act without seeing the end clearly. They start without a mental map. This lack of direction breeds confusion and hesitation. When you don't know where you're going, every step feels uncertain. But when you take time to visualize your desired outcome in detail, your actions gain focus. You stop reacting and start creating. Visualization turns abstract goals into something specific and tangible. It gives your mind a destination to move toward, and once that picture is strong enough, your behavior naturally starts aligning with it. The process of visualization begins with clarity. You need to know exactly what outcome you want to see. Instead of saying, "I want to be successful," describe what success looks like in your daily life. Where are you? What are you doing? Who are you surrounded by? What emotions do you feel? The more vivid your image, the stronger the effect on your brain. Specificity builds belief. When you can see it clearly, your subconscious begins treating it as possible. This inner certainty influences the choices you make and the risks you're willing to take. Visualization is also about feeling, not just seeing. Many people imagine a goal but forget to connect emotionally with it. The power of visualization lies in linking thought with emotion. When you feel the excitement, pride, or peace associated with your vision, you activate the emotional circuits that motivate real-world action. The mind doesn't clearly distinguish between imagined and actual experiences. It reacts to both. That means when you emotionally engage with your visualized outcome, your body starts responding as if it's happening right now. That's why people who visualize deeply often find themselves more motivated and confident without forcing it. Consistency is key. Visualizing once or twice won't shift your mindset. It must become a daily habit. The mind needs repetition to reprogram itself. Just as muscles strengthen through regular exercise, your mental focus sharpens through consistent visualization. Set aside a few minutes each morning or night to picture your desired outcome. Close your eyes, take deep breaths, and immerse yourself in that vision. Feel the environment, hear the sounds, and experience the emotions. Over time, your brain will begin to prioritize actions that align with this vision, because it now perceives them as natural extensions of who you are. Visualization also helps overcome fear and hesitation. When you mentally rehearse success, you train your mind to associate the unknown with positive results rather than danger. Most fear stems from uncertainty. Your brain doesn't know what will happen, so it prepares for the worst. But when you repeatedly imagine positive outcomes, you replace uncertainty with familiarity. You've already experienced success in your mind, so the real situation feels less intimidating. This shift in perception gives you the calmness and confidence to act decisively. A powerful technique within visualization is to imagine the entire process, not just the final result. Many people visualize the end goal, like holding the award, seeing the bank balance, or achieving recognition, but skip the journey. The most effective visualization includes every step leading up to the outcome, the early mornings, the learning, the persistence, and even the small setbacks. When you mentally walk through the process, your brain becomes comfortable with the effort required. You're less likely to quit when challenges arise because you've already seen yourself handling them successfully. Visualization also works best when paired with action. It's not meant to replace effort, but to prepare your mind for it. Think of it as pre-programming your behavior. Once your brain believes in the outcome, taking practical steps becomes easier because resistance fades. You stop second-guessing yourself. The mental movie you've created acts like a compass, guiding your decisions automatically. You start choosing habits, people, and opportunities that align with the vision you hold. The clearer your inner picture, the smoother your external path becomes. An important part of this practice is self-image. You cannot visualize success if you secretly see yourself as someone unworthy of it. Visualization is most powerful when you also imagine yourself as the kind of person capable of achieving your goal. If your vision is wealth, picture yourself as responsible, focused, and generous. If your goal is health, see yourself as disciplined, energetic, and consistent. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you believe you are. Visualization helps you reshape that inner identity by reinforcing it over time. Many people fail to realize that every action they take is first influenced by an image in their mind. The way you see yourself determines what you attempt, how you react, and how long you persist. If your mental image is filled with doubt or defeat, your actions will reflect it. Visualization is a way to rewrite that inner narrative. By repeatedly seeing yourself succeed, your subconscious begins filtering reality to support that story. You start noticing opportunities, resources, and ideas that you once ignored. It's not magic, it's mental focus directing perception. Visualization can also be used to prepare for specific challenges. For example, if you have an upcoming interview or presentation, close your eyes and mentally walk through the situation. See yourself calm, clear, and composed. Hear your voice steady and confident. Feel the relief and satisfaction afterward. This mental practice reduces anxiety because your brain now recognizes the event as familiar. When the real moment arrives, your behavior follows the script you rehearsed. You've trained yourself to respond effectively before it even happens. Over time, visualization shapes not only your behavior but your emotional resilience. When you see positive outcomes consistently, you begin to expect them. This expectation builds optimism, which in turn fuels persistence. People who visualize are less likely to give up after failure because their internal picture remains strong. Even when reality doesn't match the vision yet, the mind stays focused on where it's going, not where it is. That inner focus becomes the anchor that keeps you steady during uncertainty. To make visualization more powerful, connect it with your values. Don't just picture external achievements, visualize the impact they have on your life and others. Imagine the sense of fulfillment that comes from contributing, creating, or improving something meaningful. When your visualization is rooted in purpose, motivation becomes sustainable. It's easier to commit to a long journey when your vision is tied to something deeper than material success. The most effective visualizations are grounded in truth. This means you're not escaping reality, you're enhancing it. Visualization works because it aligns imagination with intention. You're not pretending life is different, you're preparing for it to become different. The goal is not to manipulate circumstances, but to transform how you approach them. When your inner world shifts, your outer world follows naturally. In a distracted world, visualization also strengthens focus. It trains your attention to stay fixed on what matters most. When your mind has a clear picture of your destination, distractions lose their pull. You begin to act with precision instead of scattering your energy in multiple directions. This mental clarity saves time, reduces stress, and makes every decision more purposeful. As you make visualization part of your daily life, you'll notice small changes at first. You might start feeling calmer, more confident, and more organized. Soon, those mental adjustments translate into visible results, better choices, stronger habits, and new opportunities. What began as imagination becomes lived experience. The bridge between thought and reality is built through consistent visualization and action combined. In the end, the mind is the blueprint of your life. Everything you experience externally was once formed internally. By visualizing outcomes before taking steps, you take control of that blueprint. You stop living by chance and start living by design. Each image you create is a seed planted in your subconscious, and with repetition, those seeds grow into real experiences. The more vividly and frequently you see the future you want, the faster it takes shape. Reality bends toward clarity, and visualization gives you that clarity before you even begin. Number 6. Build confidence through small wins. Confidence is not something you suddenly wake up with. It's something you build piece by piece through consistent, meaningful action. Many people wait for confidence before they act, believing that once they feel ready, they'll finally start doing what they've been postponing. But confidence doesn't come before action. It grows because of it. The truth is that every small success, every minor victory, becomes a building block that strengthens your sense of belief in yourself. Confidence built on small wins is unshakable because it's earned, not imagined. It's grounded in evidence, not empty reassurance. When you focus on small wins, you take control of your growth. You stop expecting a single breakthrough to transform everything overnight. You understand that progress is a gradual climb, and each step forward reinforces your inner stability. The human mind thrives on evidence of competence. Every time you follow through on a promise, finish a task, or handle a challenge with courage, you reinforce the message that you are capable. This quiet repetition of doing what you said you'd do is the real foundation of confidence. It doesn't need applause or recognition. It only needs consistency. Many people set massive goals and quickly lose motivation because the gap between where they are and where they want to be feels overwhelming. They underestimate the power of incremental improvement. Small wins shrink the distance between effort and reward. When you focus on what can be achieved today, something tangible, doable, and measurable, you create momentum. That momentum builds emotional strength and keeps you moving even when enthusiasm fades. Big goals are achieved by stringing together many small victories. Each one adds a layer of self-trust, making you more willing to take on the next challenge. Small wins are more than just progress markers. They're psychological fuel. The brain releases dopamine each time you accomplish something, even something simple. That chemical reinforcement encourages you to keep going. When you deliberately set up opportunities for small successes, you're not tricking yourself, you're training your mind to associate effort with satisfaction. This rewiring turns discipline into something rewarding instead of exhausting. Over time, you begin to crave the feeling of completion rather than avoiding effort. Building confidence through small wins also means redefining what winning means. Too often, people only celebrate outcomes that seem impressive to others. But lasting confidence comes from acknowledging quiet progress. Waking up early, sticking to your routine, resisting a bad habit, speaking up when it's uncomfortable, learning something new even when no one notices. These moments don't attract attention, but they matter deeply because they strengthen your integrity. When you recognize these achievements, you affirm that your growth doesn't depend on external approval, it depends on your internal standard. One of the most effective ways to grow confidence is to start where you are, not where you wish you were. Many people delay taking action because they're waiting for ideal circumstances. They want to feel fully prepared before starting something new, but preparation is often just another form of procrastination. The real growth happens when you begin imperfectly and adjust as you go. Every small step forward teaches you something that planning alone cannot. Each imperfect attempt builds the skill and courage you need for the next one. Confidence grows through experience, not theory. Small wins also have the power to silence self-doubt. Doubt thrives in action. It feeds on the absence of proof. When you stay stuck in overthinking, your mind invents reasons why you can't succeed. But when you take small, consistent actions, you create real evidence that challenges those doubts. Each success, no matter how small, weakens the voice of fear. The more you act, the less room doubt has to control you. Confidence doesn't come from ignoring fear, but from proving to yourself that you can move forward despite it. One powerful example of this principle can be seen in people who commit to daily habits. Consider someone trying to improve their fitness. The first day they show up for a short walk, it feels insignificant, but that act plants a seed of consistency. After a week, the routine becomes familiar. After a month, the results start to show. That person begins to trust their own discipline. The small act of showing up regularly transforms how they see themselves. They stop identifying as someone who struggles to stay consistent and start seeing themselves as someone who keeps promises. That shift in identity is the essence of confidence. Confidence through small wins is also sustainable because it's rooted in reality. It doesn't depend on comparison or validation from others. You don't have to be the best or achieve extraordinary things to feel capable. You only have to see that you're improving compared to yesterday. When progress is your focus, failure loses its sting because it's just part of the process. Each mistake becomes a lesson, not a verdict. That mindset keeps you steady even when circumstances change. You're no longer measuring your worth by perfection, but by persistence. To apply this in daily life, start by breaking large goals into micro-tasks. If your goal is to write a book, focus first on writing 1 paragraph a day. If your goal is to save money, begin by saving a small, consistent amount. If you're trying to overcome social anxiety, start by speaking to 1 new person each day. These actions may seem small, but they accumulate into something powerful. Each time you complete a micro goal, you prove that you can make progress. That proof changes how you think and how you carry yourself. Small wins also help build emotional stability. When you regularly experience success, you begin to see challenges differently. You stop viewing setbacks as signs of failure and start seeing them as temporary detours. This emotional balance is what separates those who persist from those who quit. People who have built confidence through small victories don't crumble under pressure because they have a backlog of evidence that they can handle difficulty. They've trained themselves to associate struggle with growth instead of defeat. Another benefit of focusing on small wins is that it keeps your ego in check. Large victories can sometimes create overconfidence or complacency, but small wins remind you that growth is continuous. Each step forward shows that there's always more to learn and more ways to improve. This kind of humility strengthens confidence because it's not fragile. You don't need to protect an image of success. You simply keep moving, knowing that progress is the real reward. Building confidence through small wins also helps you navigate uncertainty. Life rarely unfolds exactly as planned, and big goals often face unexpected obstacles. But when your focus is on consistent, manageable actions, you stay adaptable. Even when circumstances change, you can still take 1 step forward. This adaptability becomes another layer of confidence. You stop fearing change because you trust your ability to handle it. The more you adapt successfully, the more resilient you become. Small wins also improve how you talk to yourself. Instead of dwelling on what you haven't done, you start acknowledging what you have achieved. This positive self-dialogue reshapes your inner voice. It turns self-criticism into self-encouragement. You begin to notice progress in real time, which reinforces motivation People often underestimate how powerful self-talk is in shaping confidence. When your mind becomes a source of support rather than sabotage, everything else becomes easier. Over time, small wins change your identity at a deep level. You no longer see yourself as someone trying to become confident. You see yourself as someone who already is. Confidence stops being a goal and becomes a natural byproduct of how you live. You move with calm assurance, not arrogance. You handle uncertainty with grace because you've proven to yourself again and again that you can figure things out. Each day's small victories build a quiet strength that no external validation can replace. The journey of confidence is a daily practice. There is no finish line, only growth. Each small win is a reminder that progress is possible and that effort matters more than speed. Some days, the win might simply be staying patient, staying consistent, or showing up when you didn't feel like it. These moments matter. They're the invisible foundation beneath every visible success story. In the end, true confidence isn't about being fearless or flawless. It's about knowing that you can rely on yourself. You trust that you'll do what's necessary, even when it's uncomfortable, and that trust is built through the repetition of small, deliberate victories. Over time, those quiet accomplishments accumulate into something extraordinary. The small steps you take every day eventually form the path to your greatest achievements. Each action, each effort, and each completed task becomes a message to yourself. I am capable, I can handle this, I can grow, and that belief, nurtured daily through small wins, becomes the unshakable confidence that guides every part of your life. Number 7. Detach from negative self-talk completely. The voice in your head shapes how you live more than any external influence ever could. It can be your greatest ally or your most persistent enemy. Negative self-talk is the quiet force that erodes confidence, peace, and purpose without you even realizing it. It whispers things like, "You're not enough, you always fail," or "You'll never change." These statements sound harmless at first, but over time they build an invisible prison in your mind. The moment you start believing them, they dictate your choices, limit your actions, and color how you see yourself. To live freely and fully, you must learn to detach from that inner critic completely. You can't always silence it, but you can stop giving it power. Negative self-talk thrives on repetition. It feeds on attention and belief. Each time you entertain it, it grows louder and more convincing. The first step in breaking free from it is awareness. Most people are so accustomed to their inner dialogue that they don't even notice when it turns hostile. They accept those thoughts as truth. But thoughts are not facts. They are mental events, fleeting interpretations that can be challenged and changed. The ability to observe your thoughts without identifying with them is one of the most powerful skills you can develop. It gives you the freedom to decide which voices deserve your attention. Detaching from negative self-talk doesn't mean forcing yourself to think positive all the time. It means recognizing that you are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes them. This awareness creates distance. When a self-critical thought arises, "I can't do this," for example, you can simply notice it and respond with calm objectivity. Instead of fighting it or believing it, you can label it, "That's a thought of doubt." This simple act weakens its hold over you. Once you see thoughts as passing mental patterns rather than reflections of reality, their power dissolves. Many people let their inner critic take charge because it feels familiar. It may even feel like it's protecting them. That critical voice often develops as a defense mechanism to prevent embarrassment, rejection, or failure. It tries to keep you safe by predicting what could go wrong. But safety and growth cannot coexist in the same space. When that voice constantly warns you to stay small, it prevents you from ever learning how capable you really are. Detaching from negative self-talk is not about ignoring it, but about understanding its origins and refusing to let it dictate your direction. Every time you catch a self-critical thought, replace it with a neutral or constructive statement. If your mind says, "I'm terrible at this," you can reframe it into, "I'm still learning this skill." Neutral thinking bridges the gap between negativity and optimism. It grounds you in reality without judgment. Over time, this practice rewires your mental patterns. The brain responds to repetition. What you tell yourself consistently becomes your default mindset. By consciously shifting your internal language, you're training your mind to support you instead of sabotage you. Another way to detach from negative self-talk is to treat yourself with the same respect you give to others. You wouldn't speak cruelly to someone you love, yet you may speak harshly to yourself without hesitation. This double standard is destructive. Self-compassion doesn't make you weak or indulgent, it makes you resilient. When you respond to your own mistakes with understanding instead of condemnation, you create the conditions for growth. A harsh inner dialogue traps you in guilt and fear, but a kind one invites learning and change. The more compassion you show yourself, the quieter the inner critic becomes. The mind has a tendency to replay painful moments like a broken record. It replays every failure, every rejection, every embarrassment, as if rehearsing for the next disappointment. This cycle keeps you trapped in old emotions and prevents you from moving forward. To break it, you must interrupt the pattern. Whenever you catch your mind spiraling into self-blame or regret, take a pause. Ground yourself in the present moment. Notice your breathing. Feel your surroundings. Remind yourself that the past is no longer happening. The critic lives in memory. Presence dissolves its influence. Journaling can also help you expose and neutralize negative self-talk. Writing your thoughts down gives you a clearer view of what's happening inside your mind. When you see the same self-critical patterns written on paper, they lose their invisibility. You can analyze them logically. Is this thought true? Is it helpful? Would I say this to someone else? These questions strip away the illusion that negative self-talk is accurate or useful. Most of the time, it's just fear in disguise. And when fear is seen clearly, it loses its authority. One common trap is believing that being self-critical keeps you motivated. People often think they need to be hard on themselves to stay disciplined or productive. But this approach backfires. Constant self-judgment drains energy and erodes focus. It replaces curiosity with anxiety and turns learning into punishment. True discipline comes from self-respect, not self-loathing. When you detach from negative self-talk, you free up mental space for improvement that comes from calm evaluation instead of emotional turmoil. You can still hold yourself accountable, but you do it from a place of growth, not guilt. Detachment also requires patience. You can't silence years of internal criticism overnight. The mind will return to familiar habits because that's what it knows. The key is not to react when it does. Each time you refuse to engage, you weaken the cycle. Imagine your negative thoughts as clouds passing through the sky. You are not the clouds. You are the sky itself, vast and unaffected. Thoughts come and go, but your awareness remains steady. This understanding creates inner peace even when your mind tries to pull you back into negativity. Surrounding yourself with the right influences is another powerful way to reduce negative self-talk. Environments shape inner dialogue. If you spend time around people who constantly criticize, compare, or complain, your mind will mirror that tone. But when you're around those who encourage honesty, effort, and progress, your inner voice begins to soften and align with that energy. Protect your environment carefully, both physically and digitally. The conversations, media, and messages you consume all feed the voice inside your head. Choose those that strengthen you instead of depleting you. Practicing mindfulness strengthens your ability to observe without judgment. When you become more conscious of how thoughts arise and fade, you begin to see that they're transient. Mindfulness allows you to witness negative self-talk as background noise rather than commands to obey. You start noticing patterns, certain thoughts that appear when you're tired, anxious, or under pressure. With awareness, you gain choice. You no longer react impulsively, you respond with intention. That gap between thought and action is where real freedom exists. Another useful practice is to remind yourself that you are always evolving. The voice in your head often speaks from an outdated version of who you used to be. It doesn't recognize your growth because it's trapped in the past. When it tells you you always mess things up, it's referring to an old identity that no longer fits. Acknowledge your progress. Reflect on moments when you've handled situations better than before. These reminders ground you in your current reality and weaken the authority of your old self-perception. You can also visualize your inner critic as a separate character. Give it a name or a shape, something that distinguishes it from you. When you personify that voice, it becomes easier to talk back to it rationally. You can say, "That's not my truth, that's fear talking." This psychological distancing technique is simple yet effective. It prevents you from fusing with the negativity and gives you emotional room to choose a different response. Over time, the critic loses its emotional intensity because you no longer identify with it. Detaching from negative self-talk creates mental clarity. It allows creativity, focus, and optimism to surface naturally. When your inner dialogue stops attacking you, your energy shifts from survival to growth. You start noticing opportunities instead of obstacles. You take more risks, speak more honestly, and approach challenges with curiosity. This transformation doesn't come from forcing positivity but from removing unnecessary resistance. The less energy you waste fighting yourself, the more energy you have to build your life intentionally. Every day offers opportunities to practice this detachment. The moment you wake up, your mind starts narrating your day, how you feel, what you expect, what you fear. You can observe these thoughts without judgment and decide which ones deserve attention. This simple awareness turns the day into a conscious choice rather than an automatic reaction. The more often you do it, the easier it becomes to stay balanced no matter what your mind says. Freedom from negative self-talk doesn't mean the absence of self-reflection. It means replacing destructive criticism with constructive awareness. You can evaluate your behavior, acknowledge your mistakes, and still treat yourself with dignity. You can learn from failure without labeling yourself as a failure. This balanced mindset builds emotional strength that no external praise or criticism can shake. Over time, as you detach from the voice of negativity, you begin to hear another one emerging, a calm, confident voice that speaks with clarity and truth. It doesn't shout or judge, it guides. That voice is your authentic self. It was never gone, it was just buried beneath the noise of doubt. The more you align with it, the more peaceful and self-assured you become. You stop battling your mind and start using it as a tool for creation rather than destruction. When you no longer believe every thought you think, you experience a kind of freedom that words can barely describe. You realize that your worth was never tied to your mistakes, fears, or imperfections. It has always been intact, waiting to be recognized. Detaching from negative self-talk is not just about changing how you think. It's about remembering who you truly are beneath those thoughts, capable, worthy, and unbroken. Once you see that clearly, your inner world transforms, and with it, so does everything around you. Number 8. Learn to respond, not react. Life is full of moments that demand attention, moments that provoke emotion, and moments that challenge our composure. In each of these moments, we are faced with a choice to react impulsively or to respond intentionally. Reaction is automatic, driven by emotion, habit, or impulse. Response, on the other hand, is deliberate, guided by thought, reflection, and purpose. Learning to respond rather than react is a fundamental skill for emotional mastery, decision-making, and personal growth. It transforms how you navigate challenges, relationships, and opportunities, creating a life shaped by conscious choices instead of reflexive impulses. Reaction is often born from survival instincts. When something unexpected happens, a criticism, a sudden change, or an obstacle, the mind immediately interprets it as threat or challenge. This triggers an emotional surge, anger, fear, frustration, or anxiety. In this state, decisions are made quickly, without full consideration of consequences. Reactions tend to escalate conflict, deepen mistakes, or create regret. They feel natural, they are instantaneous, but they rarely serve long-term interests. Reacting is giving control of your actions to your emotional state rather than your reasoned judgment. Response requires a pause, a deliberate step between stimulus and action. This pause is where power resides. It is a moment of choice, a split second where you decide whether your behavior will be governed by instinct or intention. That split second can feel like nothing, yet it has the potential to change outcomes dramatically. When you respond rather than react, you consider the situation carefully, evaluate your goals, and act in alignment with your values, rather than with immediate emotion. Responses are constructive because they are conscious, thoughtful, and calibrated to reality. The first step in learning to respond is awareness. You must notice when you are being triggered and recognize the initial surge of emotion. Emotions are signals. They carry information about what matters to you, what you value, and where your boundaries are. Awareness allows you to observe these emotions without being swept away by them. This observational stance is not detachment in the sense of indifference. It is clarity. By labeling your emotion, I feel anger, I feel fear, I feel disappointment, you separate the feeling from the impulse to act immediately. Recognition is the beginning of mastery. Breathing and grounding techniques are practical tools that create the space for response. When emotions spike, physiological changes occur. Heart rate rises, muscles tense, and adrenaline flows. By consciously slowing your breath and bringing attention to your body, you calm the system. This doesn't eliminate emotion, but it reduces impulsivity, giving your mind room to engage in reasoning. Grounding yourself in the present, focusing on sensory details around you, also interrupts the automatic reaction loop. Once your body and mind are settled, thoughtful action becomes possible. Perspective is another essential element of responding effectively. Reactions are often narrow because they are dominated by the immediate situation. Responses broaden the lens. Before acting, ask yourself, what are the potential outcomes of this action? What aligns with my long-term goals? How will this decision affect others? Perspective shifts your focus from short-term emotional relief to long-term strategy. It transforms moments of stress into opportunities for skillful decision-making. Each response becomes a deliberate investment in the life you want to create. Practicing response also requires humility. You must acknowledge that your initial impulses are not always accurate or helpful. The mind reacts based on assumptions, biases, or incomplete information. By recognizing the limits of your immediate perception, you open the door to more effective behavior. Listening carefully, seeking clarification, and considering alternative viewpoints are all aspects of responding. It is not about suppressing emotion, but about integrating it with reasoning. Emotional intelligence is built on this balance between feeling and thought. Consistency is key. Learning to respond rather than react is a skill developed over time through repeated practice. Each situation where you pause, reflect, and act intentionally reinforces new neural pathways. The brain begins to recognize that you are capable of handling stress without giving in to automatic impulses. Over time, this becomes second nature. Your default mode shifts from reaction to response, creating a life where choices are deliberate, relationships are healthier, and challenges are approached with composure. Another important principle is ownership. Reactions often involve blaming external circumstances or people. This happened to me, or they made me angry. Responding shifts the focus inward. How will I handle this? This shift in locus of control is empowering because it recognizes that while you cannot always control events, you can control your behavior. Response is a conscious claim to agency, whereas reaction is a surrender to circumstance. The more consistently you respond, the more mastery you gain over your life. Practicing response also improves communication. When you react, words are often harsh, defensive or impulsive, which escalates tension and misunderstanding. When you respond, your communication becomes intentional. You choose words that convey your message clearly, assert your boundaries without aggression, and foster collaboration rather than conflict. This skill strengthens relationships and builds trust. People naturally gravitate toward those who act thoughtfully rather than impulsively because they create safety and reliability in their interactions. Learning to respond also involves anticipating triggers. Self-awareness allows you to identify situations, people, or patterns that provoke strong emotional reactions. Once you know your triggers, you can prepare strategies for responding skillfully. Mental rehearsal, breathing techniques, or predefined responses can be effective. Anticipation does not remove the challenge, but equips you with tools to navigate it with composure. Over time, triggers lose their power as your confidence in your ability to respond grows. Patience is essential in this process. Immediate gratification, impulsive defense, or reactionary anger may feel satisfying in the short term, but they often produce regret. Responses prioritize long-term well-being and integrity. Cultivating patience allows you to weigh consequences and act in alignment with values rather than fleeting emotion. It requires restraint, but the benefits, clarity, effectiveness, and inner peace are profound. Reflection enhances this skill. After a challenging situation, review how you acted. Did you react impulsively, or did you respond thoughtfully? What cues did you miss, and how could you improve next time? Reflection reinforces learning and provides insight into your habitual patterns. It also strengthens accountability, ensuring that future choices align with your intention to respond rather than react. Progress becomes measurable, and mastery becomes attainable. Developing this habit also improves resilience. Life is unpredictable, and unexpected events will always occur. By responding instead of reacting, you maintain equilibrium amidst chaos. Challenges become opportunities to practice skillful action rather than sources of overwhelm. The ability to stay composed under pressure is not innate. It is cultivated through conscious effort, repeated practice, and mindful reflection. Resilience grows naturally from the discipline of responding. Emotional regulation is a key outcome of learning to respond. When you respond intentionally, you maintain control over your emotional state, rather than letting it control you. This stability reduces anxiety, strengthens decision-making, and fosters clarity in difficult situations. Responding becomes a protective strategy for mental and emotional health, allowing you to navigate stress without being derailed. Responding effectively requires clarity about your values and priorities. When a challenge arises, Decisions become easier if you have a clear understanding of what matters most to you. Alignment with values acts as a compass. Reactions often arise from confusion or misalignment, but responses are anchored in integrity. The clarity of purpose transforms uncertainty into deliberate action. Ultimately, learning to respond rather than react is a transformative practice. It reshapes how you experience the world, how others experience you, and how effectively you achieve your goals. Each moment becomes an opportunity to exercise control, demonstrate integrity, and cultivate composure. Over time, responding becomes second nature, creating a life defined by thoughtful action, measured judgment, and conscious choice. The power is not in avoiding emotion, it is in guiding it, channeling it, and acting with intention, no matter what life presents. This mastery over yourself becomes the foundation for everything you seek. Calmness under pressure, clarity in decision-making, strength in adversity, and consistent progress toward the life you truly desire. Number 9. Focus energy on controllable factors. Life constantly presents challenges, many of which are beyond your control. Circumstances change unexpectedly, people behave unpredictably, and external events often unfold in ways that defy your expectations. Focusing energy on uncontrollable factors is exhausting and unproductive. Worrying about what cannot be influenced creates stress, drains mental resources, and leaves little capacity for effective action. True power lies in directing attention and effort toward what you can control: your choices, your actions, your mindset. When energy is focused strategically on controllable factors, progress becomes inevitable, confidence grows, and life feels manageable instead of chaotic. Many people mistake effort for effectiveness. They spend hours analyzing news, replaying past mistakes, or fretting over other people's behavior. This effort feels productive because it involves activity, but it rarely produces meaningful results. The distinction between effort and control is crucial. Action without influence is wasted energy. By identifying what is within your sphere of influence, you maximize returns on effort. You conserve energy for activities that actually shape outcomes, rather than spinning in circles chasing illusions of control. The first step in this process is awareness. It requires honest reflection on what aspects of a situation you can realistically affect. For example, you cannot control someone else's opinion, the economy, or natural events. You can, however, control your preparation, your responses, your attitude, and the consistency of your actions. By clearly delineating the controllable from the uncontrollable, you prevent your mind from being hijacked by fear, frustration, or regret. Awareness is not resignation, it is strategic clarity. Once you identify controllable factors, the next step is to direct all available energy toward them. This involves prioritization and focus. You no longer dilute your effort across irrelevant variables or waste time trying to manipulate the unpredictable. Each action you take is intentional, aimed at areas where you can make a tangible difference. This shift transforms overwhelm into productivity because energy is concentrated rather than scattered. The more precise your focus, the more effective your actions become. Control begins with mindset. Your thoughts are always within your power to manage. You can choose optimism over pessimism, preparation over panic, and curiosity over judgment. Negative mental patterns, worry, self-doubt, and rumination are forms of energy leakage. They consume attention without producing results. By focusing your mind on actionable, controllable factors, you harness mental energy as a tool rather than a liability. Clarity of thought directs clarity of action. Decision-making becomes simpler when energy is focused on what you can control. Life is filled with variables, and attempting to predict or manipulate them all is a recipe for indecision. Instead, examine the levers within your reach. What steps can you take that directly influence outcomes? What behaviors, habits, or choices produce measurable effects? By acting on these, you reduce uncertainty and build momentum. Each small victory reinforces your agency, creating a cycle of effective action. Preparation is an essential companion to focusing on controllable factors. While you cannot control every eventuality, you can equip yourself to respond effectively when challenges arise. Learning, skill development, planning, and risk mitigation are all controllable actions that strengthen resilience. The more capable you are within your sphere of influence, the less vulnerable you are to external chaos. Preparation turns uncertainty into opportunity because you are ready to act when situations change. Acceptance is another critical element. Focusing on what is controllable does not mean ignoring reality or denying difficulty. It means acknowledging limits honestly while refusing to waste energy on them. Accept that some outcomes are inherently unpredictable. Let go of obsession over events or decisions that cannot be shaped by your effort. Acceptance frees mental bandwidth, reduces stress, and empowers action where it counts. Energy once spent resisting reality can now fuel progress. Accountability enhances the effectiveness of this approach. When energy is focused on controllable factors, it becomes possible to measure results accurately. You can track actions, evaluate their effectiveness, and adjust strategies in real time. Accountability creates feedback loops that accelerate learning. By assessing what works within your control and refining your approach, you continuously increase competence. The mind responds positively to tangible results, reinforcing effort and minimizing frustration over what cannot be changed. Focusing on controllable factors also strengthens emotional resilience. Life is unpredictable, and external forces will always fluctuate. By anchoring attention on what you can influence, you reduce vulnerability to disappointment, frustration, and anger. Emotional energy is preserved for productive engagement rather than wasted on resentment or fear. This emotional equilibrium enables clearer thinking, steadier decision-making, and sustained effort over the long term. Time management is enhanced when energy is directed toward controllable factors. Time is finite, and every moment spent on fruitless worry is lost opportunity. By concentrating on actions that produce results, you maximize efficiency. Daily habits, routines, and focused work all fall under controllable factors. Each deliberate decision about how to spend time compounds into greater mastery, competence, and achievement. Strategic allocation of energy and attention amplifies the impact of every hour. Controllable factors extend to relationships and communication. You cannot dictate how others behave, but you can control your tone, approach, boundaries, and effort in interactions. By focusing on these elements, relationships become more productive, less stressful, and more aligned with your values. You are no longer reactive to others' moods or decisions, but proactive in shaping positive outcomes where influence exists. This approach reduces conflict, fosters collaboration, and strengthens trust. Health and well-being are also controllable factors often overlooked in stress-filled lives. Diet, exercise, sleep, and mental hygiene fall squarely within personal control. Prioritizing these areas stabilizes energy levels, enhances clarity of thought, and increases the capacity for effective action. When physical and mental resources are optimized, the ability to influence external outcomes is amplified. Neglecting health, by contrast, diminishes resilience and leaves you vulnerable to the uncontrollable aspects of life. Focusing energy on controllable factors encourages deliberate goal setting. Goals rooted in action rather than outcome. Keep attention on what matters. For instance, instead of obsessing over winning a promotion which depends on many external factors, focus on improving skills, building relationships, and consistently delivering results. These controllable actions increase the probability of success without creating frustration over outcomes you cannot dictate. Energy aligned with control produces tangible progress. Habits are central to controlling energy effectively. Habits automate action in areas you can influence, reducing the mental burden of constant decision-making. When positive routines are established, such as planning daily priorities, reviewing progress, or practicing skill development, energy is preserved for the most impactful efforts. Habits make consistent focus on controllable factors effortless over time. Detachment from outcomes beyond your influence is a necessary complement to focusing on control. It is not enough to act. Attachment to results outside your control generates anxiety. The effort must be distinguished from the outcome. Acting with full commitment while accepting uncertainty protects mental health and sustains motivation. Detachment allows for action without unnecessary emotional entanglement. Reflection reinforces focus on what is controllable. At the end of each day, evaluate where energy was spent and what produced measurable results. Identify areas where energy was wasted on uncontrollable factors and adjust. Continuous reflection creates precision in effort allocation, increasing effectiveness over time. This practice sharpens judgment, strengthens discipline, and builds confidence in your ability to manage life proactively. Ultimately, focusing energy on controllable factors transforms the relationship with challenges. Life remains unpredictable, but anxiety diminishes because attention is placed where it has impact. Each action taken within your influence produces results, reinforcing capability, building momentum, and enhancing clarity. The mind becomes calm, decisive, and resilient. Energy is no longer scattered on impossibilities but concentrated on actions that produce measurable change. Mastery begins in recognizing the limits of control and intentionally directing effort where it matters most. This principle, channeling energy to what can be influenced, creates a life grounded in reason, efficiency, and purpose. Progress becomes measurable, stress diminishes, and confidence grows. Over time, the habit of focusing on controllable factors becomes second nature. You respond to challenges with poise, navigate uncertainty with competence, and make the most of every opportunity that falls within your sphere of influence. Life no longer feels like a series of random events, but a sequence of choices, guided by deliberate action, grounded in what you can truly affect. Energy focused on control produces results. Mastery over effort produces freedom, and that freedom, born of clarity and intentionality, becomes the foundation of a life well lived. Number 10. Commit to daily mental upgrades. Personal growth is not an event, it is a continuous process. Your mind is the most powerful tool you own, yet it requires maintenance, attention, and deliberate refinement. Without care, mental habits become rigid, thinking patterns stagnate, and perception narrows. Committing to daily mental upgrades ensures that your mind remains sharp, resilient, and adaptable. Each day presents an opportunity to strengthen intellect, emotional intelligence, and perspective. By deliberately enhancing your cognitive and emotional faculties, you create a foundation for long-term success, clarity, and fulfillment. Daily mental upgrades begin with awareness. The first step is observing how you think, what you believe, and how you interpret experiences. Most people move through life reacting to stimuli without examining the underlying mental patterns that shape behavior. Thoughts, assumptions, and biases accumulate silently over time, influencing decisions without your conscious approval. Observing your thought patterns allows you to identify outdated beliefs, limiting assumptions, and unproductive habits. Awareness illuminates what requires change before any meaningful upgrade can occur. Once awareness is established, intentional learning becomes the next focus. Knowledge is the building block of mental improvement. Each day presents opportunities to absorb information that challenges your thinking and broadens perspective. Reading, listening to educational content, engaging in meaningful discussions, and exposing yourself to new ideas strengthens cognitive flexibility. Mental upgrades are not about accumulating facts. They are about training the mind to analyze, adapt, and integrate knowledge in practical ways. Critical thinking is a core component of daily mental upgrades. Every thought or belief you hold should be examined for accuracy and utility. Question assumptions, challenge biases, and test conclusions against evidence. The mind that accepts everything at face value stagnates, while the mind that questions, evaluates, and refines becomes increasingly competent. Daily practice in scrutinizing ideas sharpens judgment and fosters independence from unexamined opinions, societal pressures, or fleeting emotions. Emotional intelligence is equally essential in mental refinement. Understanding your own emotions, managing responses, and empathizing with others strengthens decision-making and social interaction. Each day provides opportunities to practice awareness of emotional triggers, observe reactions, and recalibrate responses. Emotional upgrades are not about suppressing feelings, but integrating them with rational thought. A balanced mind combines logic with empathy, leading to better choices and more meaningful relationships. Reflection is a practical tool for mental improvement. At the end of each day, taking time to review thoughts, actions, and outcomes helps solidify learning. Which decisions were aligned with goals? Where did thinking patterns hinder progress? How could reactions be improved? Reflection transforms experience into knowledge, ensuring that mistakes become lessons and successes reinforce positive strategies. Without reflection, mental growth is haphazard and fragmented. Habits shape mental capacity. Daily mental upgrades involve cultivating habits that strengthen focus, clarity, and adaptability. Morning routines, mindfulness exercises, journaling, and deliberate practice all provide structured ways to enhance cognition and emotional stability. The cumulative effect of small, repeated actions compounds over time, producing substantial improvements in reasoning, creativity, and resilience. Habits act as scaffolding for mental evolution, making growth automatic rather than occasional. Exposure to challenges accelerates mental upgrades. Comfort zones limit growth, while difficulties stimulate adaptation. Each day offers situations that test patience, focus, and creativity. Approaching these challenges intentionally, seeing them as opportunities for mental strengthening, and reflecting afterward enhances problem-solving skills and emotional resilience. Challenges become tools for refinement, not threats to stability, when approached with deliberate attention and a learning mindset. The quality of information consumed directly impacts mental upgrades. Attention is a finite resource, and the mind is influenced by what it engages with repeatedly. Prioritizing high-quality input, books, podcasts, thoughtful conversations, and analytical exercises creates an environment conducive to growth. Conversely, consuming unfiltered, negative, or trivial content wastes energy and reinforces unproductive mental patterns. By curating input deliberately, you shape thought processes, expand perspective, and strengthen reasoning over time. Visualization and goal setting are integral to mental refinement. The mind responds to clarity and intention. By defining specific outcomes and imagining detailed steps to achieve them, you align thought patterns with purposeful action. Visualization acts as rehearsal for decision-making, problem-solving, and performance. Daily practice ensures that mental energy is directed toward constructive pathways, reinforcing discipline, focus, and confidence. Mental upgrades are incomplete without clear direction and intentional imagination. Accountability reinforces commitment to growth. Keeping track of learning, reflection, and applied practices ensures consistency. Daily mental upgrades require regular monitoring of progress and adaptation of strategies as needed. Whether through journaling, self-assessment, or mentorship, accountability transforms intention into measurable advancement. The mind develops not through vague desires, but through structured, repeated effort aimed at improvement. Mindfulness enhances every aspect of mental upgrading. Awareness of the present moment allows observation of thoughts without attachment, reducing mental clutter and reactive patterns. Each day spent practicing mindfulness strengthens focus, reduces stress, and improves decision-making. A mind that can observe itself objectively is better equipped to make choices, integrate learning, and maintain emotional equilibrium. Mindfulness serves as a stabilizing foundation for sustained cognitive and emotional upgrades. Language shapes thought, making communication practice essential. Expressing ideas clearly, reading with comprehension, and listening attentively refine cognitive processes. Daily attention to linguistic clarity improves reasoning, memory, and interpersonal effectiveness. Mental upgrades are amplified when thoughts are articulated and tested through dialogue, reinforcing understanding and flexibility. Communication is both a reflection and a tool of cognitive growth. Curiosity drives expansion of mental capacity. Daily questions about yourself, the world, and experiences stimulate exploration and analysis. The mind improves through active engagement, not passive reception. Mental upgrades require intentional inquiry, observation, and experimentation. Every small insight gained through curiosity compounds into greater comprehension, creativity, and wisdom. Remaining curious maintains adaptability and openness to new possibilities throughout life. Gratitude and perspective sharpen mental and emotional resilience. Regularly acknowledging progress, opportunity, and achievement strengthens confidence and reduces negative bias. By focusing on what works, what has been learned, and what is available, the mind reinforces constructive patterns. Gratitude is not passive, it's an active reframing that supports clarity, focus, and emotional stability, all of which contribute to continuous mental improvement. Consistency, not intensity, is the cornerstone of daily mental upgrades. Sporadic effort yields temporary gains, but steady, incremental practice produces lasting transformation. Each day contributes a small improvement that compounds into a significant shift over weeks, months, and years. Consistency also reinforces self-discipline, patience, and resilience, creating a mindset capable of handling increasingly complex challenges without being overwhelmed. Committing to mental upgrades also involves eliminating unhelpful patterns. Negative self-talk, procrastination, and mental clutter are obstacles that reduce focus and efficiency. Daily awareness and active correction of these patterns strengthen cognitive control and emotional regulation. Over time, the absence of mental noise allows clarity, creativity, and problem-solving ability to flourish. The mind becomes a tool of precision rather than distraction. Integration of learning is critical. Knowledge or insight without application has little value. Each day, mental upgrades should translate into action, decision-making, and behavioral refinement. The mind evolves most effectively when ideas are tested, applied, and iterated. Action validates learning, reinforces understanding, and strengthens confidence in one's cognitive and emotional capacities. Ultimately, committing to daily mental upgrades transforms life itself. Each day becomes an investment in intelligence, emotional resilience, and adaptability. Over time, the compounded effect of incremental improvement produces a mind capable of navigating complexity, uncertainty, and challenge with composure and insight. Personal growth becomes a habit rather than a goal, and the mind becomes an instrument of mastery. By dedicating time, focus, and energy to refining thought patterns, expanding knowledge, practicing reflection, and cultivating emotional intelligence, you create a life in which mental agility, clarity, and strength are constants. Daily mental upgrades ensure that growth is not left to chance or circumstance. They produce a mind that adapts, learns, and thrives, equipping you to achieve goals, overcome obstacles, and respond to life's unpredictability with poise and effectiveness. This commitment is the ultimate form of self-responsibility, transforming each day into a deliberate step toward your highest potential, ensuring that your mind is not merely surviving, but continuously evolving, expanding, and mastering the life you wish to create.